Hey, well, good evening, everybody. Alan Slaughterzinski with the Brevard Sports Network. And it was funny. I was looking at my memories feed, if you will, the other day. And lo and behold, I think it was either last year or 2 years ago on or around this date, we did an interview with this gentleman right here about the same time. And we talked a lot about a lot of the things we're going to be talking about right here today. Please help me welcome back to Brevard Sports Network the legendary Larry Blustein. Larry, first of all, thanks for coming on. And man, another year in the books, Larry. How do you keep going, my friend?
Yeah, funny you mentioned that. First of all, happy holidays to you and everybody. Uh, and I was talking to somebody about that the other day. This is closing out on year 54.
Wow.
Been doing this since, like I said, since high school. And the thing is, um, people ask me what the secret is. The secret is to doing it right. And I go a lot of places, and when I first started, Alan, we didn't have cell phones, and we didn't have computers. I always had a pocket full of change, and you had to go places to find out information, and I still do that. And that's the one thing. Obviously, it's getting tougher and tougher. From a physical standpoint, because I go to 11 college camps every summer. I go to all the spring stuff. I see 250 teams live during the 7-on-7 situations and line camps, and then during the season, what I do is I pretty much stay primarily in South Florida for the season. Because of the fact that I see everybody else throughout the course of the summer, but South Florida. I really rarely get down to South Florida for that, but I go to Pensacola and Tallahassee and Orlando, and throughout the entire state. So, and there's so many good games in the South Florida area during the course of a year that, if you leave and you go someplace else, you're going to miss out on, a Northwestern Central or a Norland and St. Thomas Aquinas. So, yeah, it's ending up. It's kind of bittersweet this time of year because you're going at a million miles an hour, and then all of a sudden you stop a little bit because of the fact that you have the holidays and everything ran into one another, and seeing 7 games in 4 days kind of wears you out a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. And now we have all-star games that I take part in and watch, a lot of all-star games. And the one good thing is Miami-Dade versus Broward, a lot of talent, and all the kids show. It's not like
Yeah.
a lot of the kids, you have these all-star games, and a lot of these kids who are, power 4 type of players don't show. But in Dade and Broward County, they take it personal. So they
Yep.
don't, they come to all the games. And now I'm getting ready for Under Armour next week. And then the following week, the Navy Bowl out in San Antonio. So we get an opportunity to see a lot of our kids. And, I do the entire state. So it's, everyone is, oh, well, you do South Florida. Yeah, I live in South Florida, so I get a chance to see a lot of those kids. But you know what? If you read a lot of my things and on Prep Redzone, you see that we do every area of the entire state. And I just did last week. All the teams that got to the state and the state runner-ups, what we do is take a look at who they have coming back, right off the bat for next year. Obviously, that's going to change. They're going to get a lot of transfers and such. But I did Coco last week, and, it's funny. When I was talking to Ryan Schneider, somebody who I've known since he was 12 years old, we were talking about the following year because for the last 5 years, they've had a really good quarterback. And, now they're faced with, using a freshman and the kid, Troy Silberhahn, who's going to be good, but it's uncharacteristic for a Ryan Schneider getting some kid who's not nationally rated. So
Here's the question for you, Larry. In your gut, will Ryan Schneider be back?
wow. Um,
My
it's funny
gut,
that
I'll tell you this. My gut tells me no.
okay, all right. He's accomplished everything you're going to do. You win 3 in a row. They're one of the elite teams in the state, obviously. You probably have a better feel of the situation than I do. I think that football, in your area has kind of reached a level where it's really Coco and everybody else. I mean,
Right.
for a while it was Rockledge that kind of pushed him a little bit. But it's really Coco and then everybody else. And so maybe he's looking for a different challenge. Maybe he's looking, because there's going to be a lot of jobs that are going to be open around state, maybe even college. So you may have a great point. I know that certainly the Coco area would miss him a lot because of what he's done. And the one thing he's done is he's looked out for his health. He's lost a lot of weight. And I'm glad
looks good. Yeah, he looks good. Larry, let me ask you this. A kid you used to cover yesterday made national headlines again. And I say kid, but he's a grown man and led his alma mater to a state championship this year. And now he's gone back to play quarterback, or at least backup quarterback for the Detroit Lions. Boy, this Teddy Bridgewater story sure is a good one, isn't it?
It's a great story. And, I kind of privy to Teddy more so than anybody. I coached him in baseball in the RBI league when he was like 13 years old. And
wow.
Yeah, he was my shortstop. He was my Sean Dunston because the kid had a cannon and, he was a great athlete and, great family. He had to grow up pretty quick. His mom, Rose, had cancer when he was younger. So he kind of had to, grow up, and he and his brother had to kind of deal with that a little bit. But I'm not real surprised. Before the Reigns game, I was on the, the bench with him early, and, while his team is warming up, and we talked about that very thing. And, the very fact that I said, you're only 32. There's a lot of guys that are in their late 30s, 40s that are still in the league. And he goes, yeah, no, I thought about that. I says, and you're in good shape. And, he says, I've been thinking really, heavily about that. And I'm thinking to myself, here's a guy that could go into the NFL, whether it's just for the remainder of this year, which it looks like now with Detroit, but even next year where he could sign a 1-year deal for $9 million. It beats eating at McDonald's over on 79th Street.
You're not kidding. And, he's got a good chance to win a state championship and playing being a Super Bowl this year. God bless him. God bless him. It's just a terrific story. And if you've ever watched him and listened to him, he's as genuine as they come, and he loves these kids. And you know what? He has really fought to get where he is. And I can remember hearing the news about that injury, that gruesome injury in training camp. And it just broke my heart then. And God bless him. And I wish him nothing but success. Larry, before we talk about the real reason we're doing this interview here today, I was curious to get your take. We had 2 years in the metro and the suburb, and then this year we have gone back to regular classifications 1 through 7 and rural. And I'm curious. I saw an interesting article. I forget the man's name out of West Palm Beach that wrote, I thought, what was just a terrific story about the state championships. And I think the headline was titled, "The FHSAA got exactly what it wanted," or got exactly what it deserved in terms of these state championship games. After having 2 years of the way this thing was in the metro and the suburb and going back to the norm this year, what's your take? What's your thoughts? What do you prefer?
Yeah, John Santucci wrote it, and John's a really good writer. He's a good friend. He's based out of the Vero Beach, in that area in Port St. Lucie. And I kind of agree with him. You really didn't have to change the way things were. I think that, you kind of divvied things up between the smaller areas and then the larger areas. But, there were people, too, that took shots at Venice and took shots at Lakeland saying, if you were in these classifications, you would have never made it. Columbus would have beaten you, St. Thomas would have beaten you, and neither of you would have made it. So there's pluses and minuses. Coco will make it no matter, where they are, because it's just the type of program that they have. And in 2A, with the exception of a couple of other programs this year, I thought that Cardinal Mooney really, and I've watched them, I thought Cardinal Mooney had a really good shot at beating Coco because, well coached. They brought in like 4 kids, including some mammoth linemen. But yeah, I liked it the way it was. The rural teams stayed rural anyway up in north. Madison County and Hawthorne. So, the only change was, a couple of other areas. And Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, but it wouldn't have precluded, some of the undefeated teams, which I was
yeah,
really
yeah.
disappointed.
I
I
was
was
too. I
I was
was too.
disappointed in the showing of Lakeland, who had come in with a 19-game winning streak, two-time defending state champion, and looked like a virtual youth football team
Yes.
against the St. Thomas team that really wasn't as great as everybody had built it up to be. I mean, I watched the three losses this year. They lost to Gorman, which was a good game, and Gorman
Yeah.
finished 14-1. But I also saw Chaminade run for 363 yards on them.
Yes.
And I also saw Heritage, my American Heritage, throw for 419 yards on them.
Yes.
So to me, if Lakeland was going to be a team, whether they were in rural or, wherever they were, I thought they were a lot better team. Same thing with Jacksonville Reigns. But then you looked at their schedules. Lakeland really didn't play a lot of really good teams. It's not like Cocoa, who jumped in the fray and wants to play a Venice, and they want to play Orlando Jones, and they want to play a Miami Norland. Lakeland doesn't really. The only thing they did, they opened up against Miami Central, and I was at the game. It was down in Miami, and they beat Miami Central, and Central didn't play very well in the game and turned the ball over 3 times and had 150 yards in penalties. And then, you look at teams like Reigns, and you look at, you go back and look at their schedule. They absolutely played nobody, Alan. So
No, you're right.
It was no surprise that when they were, and even Sarasota Booker pushed them, in the state semifinals. So you kind of think, what, and Coco saw firsthand when New Orleans played up there this year that the team speed is real. You could talk a big game until you're on that same field as those programs with all that team speed. John Peacock at Venice keeps talking about this and how they're this and that. And you know what? Teddy Bridgewater and his team went over there in week 2 and had 414 yards and took them into overtime.
Right.
And that was a program. See, because let's face it, and I know the people down here don't like to hear it, but if Central was healthy and they didn't commit all those violations, of using an ineligible player, they would have been in the state title and not Northwestern.
And Coco should have beat Venice.
Yes. That's another team. And you know what? Here's the thing where you kind of knew that. I mean, you look at Chaminade, and obviously at the beginning of the year, they came in and you tell me any team that loses 7 Power 4 kids and is still able to limp, let alone play.
Right.
And, and Chaminade came out of the box, and they had to play St. John Bosco, and they lost to them by a touchdown. Then the next week, when they lost to Pompano Beach Ely down here, but that was because of the fact that they lost all 3 quarterbacks. They were down to a Wildcat kid, and they still went into overtime and lost. But from that time, Alan, all the way to when they won and they beat Clearwater Central Catholic in the state finals, I don't think there was a team in the state that could have beaten them.
No, I agree.
I mean, they were a really, really good football program. And you know what? Here, you bring up Venice. Venice just got by Clearwater Central Catholic by 7 points.
Yes.
And it's just, there's a lot of ways to look at it. But the teams like the Cocos and New Orlando Joneses, the reason why they can play with anybody when it comes to the state championships, because they play with people all year.
Right.
And they're ready. There's no surprises. I think, Ryan probably, and I feel guilty because I kind of set up the Norland Coco game in the spring because both of them were looking for a game, and I thought it would be a real competitive game.
Well, listen, Coco just did not play well, and
Right.
and credit to Norland, because Larry, that was one of the best coaching jobs I had ever seen done against that Coco offense. And it
Right.
wasn't as if Norland went out and scored 50 points. That wasn't the case. What Norland was able to do was stop that offense.
Yeah, with a real good defensive line.
Yes.
And they did it all year. And it just so happens that that game, even though Norland won it, it really sent their year kind of topsy-turvy because they had a kid kicked out, and the following week against American Heritage he played. and then everybody, you can't do that anymore. I mean, I try, if I could scream at every coach and every player and every parent, you can't get away with anything anymore. So don't ever try. There's too much social media. There's too much attention. So if a kid gets kicked out against Coco, and then all of a sudden he's playing against American Heritage, their big rival, the following week, somebody's going to know. And that's what happened. They found that the kid was ineligible to play in the game. Norland had a forfeit to win against American Heritage. American Heritage got to be home right through the playoffs. And basically they played Orlando Jones, which out of the 7 games was by far the best game. By far the best game.
Yeah, no doubt. And I see Santucci's article. The one I was talking about was Eric Wallace, the story Wallace wrote out of the Palm Beach Post. This year, 4 touchdowns per game in the state championship. The average margin of victory last year, right at 2. Larry, you have a huge event coming up that all of these kids look forward to playing in. It's an event that year in and year out draws the best of the best. I love everything about it, from the name to how it's held. This year, the 2025 Stock Up Showcase, Larry, January 19th at Orlando Boone. Tell us about it.
Yeah, Alan, the one thing that kind of separates what we do from, the rivals and all those, Under Armours who try to showcase those 4 and 5 stars, we want to get the kids who haven't really competed or who aren't on the radar yet to get an opportunity in front of college coaches. We have NAIA, and Division II college coaches that are at the events, running the events, so they get an opportunity to check these kids out. They evaluate them along with myself. We're using Dan LaForest is kind enough to come out. You and Charles are going to be there this year, and it gives us an opportunity to get these kids on the map. Now, if you follow us, throughout the year, we highlight everybody. I mean, no matter if you're a 5-star or no star, we get you on the map. We get the teams on the map. We do a lot of team things, and we give the opportunity, Coach Sands at O'Galley last spring. We told him, I said, listen, send me your 25, your 26, your 27 kids, but they don't have to be, your star kids. Just send me everybody, because a lot of the colleges read it. That's what we do. We transfer that over to the showcase. This is a really good event. It's only 3 hours. It's on a Sunday, from 12 to 3. During that period, you'll see out of that event, we're going to have videos. Andrew and Drew Johnson and myself will be there. We'll write a lot of things on the kids. And plus, we use the valuable things that the college coaches, a lot of these kids go, will there be college coaches yet? Yes. I mean, we're not going to have, obviously, the Power 4. It's just not, nobody really does. No. But it's a good opportunity. And like I said, with yourself and with Dan and with Charles, and then obviously, Chris Hayes from the Orlando Sentinel, was there last year, and he's going to, come back. John Santucci comes up. It's only a couple hours, and we made it in Orlando, where it's only an hour and a half from the Lakeland area, from the Gainesville area, an hour from the Space Coast, an hour south. So it's centrally located. And so far we have well over 100 kids that are going to be attending. And I appreciate you giving us an opportunity to kind of shout that out, because, if you're in the Space Coast area, or anybody who, follows your great programs, it's a great opportunity. We've heard from Satellite, and we've heard from Cocoa Beach, and, over at Bayside, and the coaches that really want to, get involved this year. And they've already started to sign Merritt Island. Coach Freeman and the entire group over there have been real good to us as far as sending kids. Cocoa Beach, and also Space Coast. Coach
Jake Owens
at Palm Bay, he made sure that he had a couple of kids there. We saw him last year at the great event that you guys showcased up in Orlando at the media days, and you guys did such a great job with it. We had an opportunity to talk to him, and but that's the one thing, we go to events like that, and then we never forget the kids. I tell them, you go to one of those Under Armours or any of those other events, they're going to see you, they're going to write something real quick, and then your history. Well, what we do is we will tweet out just alone since Christmas morning, we've gotten out 154 kids from around the state at every level, from 28 to 26 and 25. So, yeah,
Well,
it's a good thing. And like I said, Alan, for what you guys do, and I appreciate it. It helps greatly get the kids exposed, and you do such a tremendous job at it.
thank you so much, and I'm going to make sure that we add quite a number to that because we're really going to promote this thing, and I'm very excited to be. I didn't get to any camps last year because of the hip, but I'm ready to get back out there this year, and so that's fantastic. And all the information for this great event has been up on the screen, and I'm telling you guys, get your butts over there. Get over there. If you need a ride, you call me. I'll take you over.
Nice.
No excuses not to be there on this day. We'll get you situated. You want to go? There's no excuses not to go on January the 19th. Larry, as we get ready to wrap up here, and first of all, thank you for all that you do. Events like this, Larry, put these kids out there, and it's just tremendous what you do for, and I always see the excitement. You see Mr. Blustein tweeted about me? They always remind me, Larry, that you had an eye on them. So thank you so much for that. I am curious to get your take on one or two more things here real quick, and I'm going to let you go. The ruling on the eligibility with the JUCO football, the NAIA, and that's quite interesting, isn't it, Larry?
Yeah. Well, you can have more 7-year kids. That's for if they're not going to count those junior college years and the NAIA years, it's going to open up a whole can of worms. I think parents will get upset because their kids will be at home till they're 26.
Easy,
so,
easy.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of rules. And it's funny that you mentioned that. Just how things have changed. Coach Larinaga, the University of Miami basketball coach, great man.
Jim Larinaga.
A guy that goes back 50, 55 years, back in when he used to coach with Terry Holland, back in the day of Virginia, and then when they were at BMI. And, he said yesterday as he's, stepping away, that just got too much for him. You know what? To win, to be part of a Final Four in the NCAA basketball, and 6 days after the Final Four, he had 8 kids come into his office to tell them that they were going to be looking to go into the portal. I mean, it's mind-boggling. It's mind-boggling.
I actually got a chance to interview Jim Larinaga when he was at George Mason.
Okay.
And, back in, and he took that program a good
Final
distance.
Four?
Yes, he did. And
Yes,
Jim Larinaga, when he got hired at Miami in 2011, I thought it was the greatest thing that they had done there. Just tremendous. And I'm sad to see Coach Larinaga go. And, I get it. I mean, nobody's ever going to convince me Nick Saban didn't step aside because of all of these changes. And I just look at it now. I'm done thinking about it. Just let me see what it looks like in 3 years. Signing days have changed so much, Larry, because now signing days are about, if you got a stage full of kids, it's about how much the NIL valuations are and
100%
what that is. And it's strange to me, Larry. And as a guy that's an old school guy like yourself that listen, I'm good with change. These kids get paid, great. As long as they're working and going to school, if that's even going to happen in the future, I don't know. But give me 3-4 years, let me see what it looks like. Because right now, Larry, I have no idea what this is.
Yeah. Well, someone brought out this morning, they go, this wasn't all designed for an athlete to make $5 million and a coach to make $2 million. And it just doesn't work out that way. In the real world, especially in college, when the emphasis should be on getting an education, getting a degree, it's the furthest thing now from it. That's why, I went to 3 NAIA games this year. I went to see Kaiser University, who has just unbelievable in 6 years of existence been to the Final Four 3 straight years and been to the finals the last 2 years. To watch them, those teams like that, they're not making any money. Those kids aren't making any money, and that's why you look at the smaller schools and you look at the colleges, and that's why at Prep Redzone what we do is we have our top 25 and 26 and 27 lists of the elite kids. We also make sure that we get anybody who wants to play college football, some exposure. And, that's been the great thing about it. And certainly, like I said, it used to be for me a pocket full of change in a regular telephone and a typewriter. And you know what? I still keep those same values, Alan. And when I see you, I'm going to unveil a couple of things for you. I have a 1965 Brooks Robinson signed media guide.
Oh my goodness!
When the Orioles had the block letters.
My goodness gracious!
I worked when the Orioles were in spring training for many years here in Miami. I worked with them, and I did the spring. Probably the thrill of my life for 3 years since 78, 79, and 80. Is I got to do spring training public address at Miami Stadium.
Wow.
So to be able to announce a Cal Ripken and Eddie Murray and, guys like that were awesome. And I remember Eddie Murray when he first arrived in Miami as a young kid out of Los Angeles, California. He had played at Bluefield, which is the rookie league, as you know, and he came in and a gentleman by the name of George Farson, who was one of the managers, took him and said, listen, if you switch hit, you may be a lot more valuable. And he taught him how to switch hit at Bluefield, carried it over to the A-ball team. And it was a lot of fun watching guys like that. And, watching Cal Ripken's father when he was a manager with the Miami.
What a coach.
Team. Yeah, it was great. It was great to watch the Orioles. They were a first-class organization for so many years. And, yep, it was. I know they're near and dear to your heart.
Oh, you cut me open. I bleed black and orange. Our family still says Merry Christmas to each other. It's funny, but Larry, you had mentioned NAIA. Did you get a chance to get down to see St. Thomas play at all this year?
Actually, I went to see them play up, and we saw your running back, who was one
Jay
of the
Farmer.
They're all-time leading rusher in school history. They were playing against Kaiser. They fell behind 27-3 at halftime. They not only caught up but took the lead in the second half, only to lose the game. Farmer ended up with 180 and did a tremendous job. But what a great young man he is. They love him at that school, and you know what? He is a blueprint for any of the athletes that think you have to go to Power 4 and all those other schools to succeed in life. And certainly, he's done a tremendous job. I'm sure his bust will be on display pretty soon up there.
No doubt. Larry, I know you got to get going. I cannot thank you enough for spending this time with us. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and all of that great stuff. Thank you for what you do. Again, up on the screen, there you see it, the Stock Up Showcase there, January 19th at Orlando Boone. We'll all be there. There's no reason not to be there. And, of course, you've also seen at the bottom of the screen all the ways with which you can follow Larry and Prep Redzone, which is just terrific. When we did the media days, Prep Redzone, Larry, they're just simply the best. Dan LaForest, Larry, thank you so much, and I'll see you on the 19th, my friend.
I'm looking forward to it, Alan. Thank you again, and Happy New Year to everybody and to yourself.
Yes, sir. Take care. Larry Blustein, ladies and gentlemen. Have a great night, everybody.